Roxo Media House.
Welcome into Frogs Today here on the scene. We welcome you to Los Angeles, the site of the national championship game that takes place tomorrow at, I think officially it's like 6:45 Central Time. Is going to be the kick at SoFi Stadium between the Horned Frogs, of course, and the Georgia Bulldogs, the battle for the national championship. We're at the college football playoff fan experience, if you will. This is what it's all about at the LA Convention Center. They were kind enough to let us broadcast live here from their podcast stage here on the Saturday. I'm joined here by Marshall Newhouse, of course, the former TCU great. Coach David Bowden is alongside. Melissa Treibwasser as well from Frogs Today. Jamie Plunkett will stop by. Jamie Dixon is watching film right now after a tough TCU basketball loss. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But right now, we get to talk a little bit about what's going to happen for the Horned Frogs here over the next couple of days as TCU gets set to match up with a really good Georgia team. The schedule of events so far has been this. Frogs arrived on Friday. They were able to do a walkthrough at SoFi on Friday afternoon. Then today, the entire team met with the media here at the Los Angeles Convention Center. From there, they were able to get a practice in to try to kind of loosen things up, work things out, make sure the game plan is implemented. Then tomorrow, we'll hear from the head coach, Sonny Dykes, another walkthrough for the team tomorrow, and then it's kick time for TCU and Georgia. We got a lot to do on this edition of Frogs Today. We're going to talk about this matchup, dive deep into some position groups that will be vital for this one. But first, I want to talk big games and how this team has handled this, last 2 weeks essentially for the Horned Frogs. The Fiesta Bowl win and now the national championship game. A guy who's been in big games, and the only way I know that is because he's sporting it on his left hand right there, is Marshall Newhouse. I mean, you know what it's like, Marshall, to prepare for games like this, to focus, to really kind of zone in at times when, there's a lot of distractions. How do you do it, man? Because I can't do it, I'll be honest with you.
I mean, yeah, it's just a lot of keeping the main thing the main thing. The TCU team had 3 to 4 weeks to prepare for the semifinal game. You're allowed to spread things out. You're going to meetings, you're still kind of working out, but things are a little bit slower. You're allowed to kind of ease in. Next thing you know, you win, which is incredible, and you're like, all right, 8-9 days, we got a game. So you get back in that momentum of TCU who played 10 straight games. How do we get back into our preparation cycle? And a lot of that preparation cycle is just getting healthy. This is the last game of the collegiate season. Everybody's on deck. We want to get all the ice baths, all the film study, all the things to get ready for this game. And you're just trying to compartmentalize. You're like, all right, this is a big game. We're going to go out there. Hopefully our coach will let us experience this a little bit. You don't want to be tight. But at the end of the day, we're here to do a job. And the job is to win, and you want to prepare yourself to win. So, yeah, they've done the media days. They've done the experiences. They've taken the pictures. And as you get closer to the game time, it becomes focus on business.
It's amazing the folks who have rallied to support the Horned Frogs. Obviously, here at Frogs Today, we have a big special thank you to our friends at Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services for bringing us this entire week. Also to Regions Bank for stepping up here for this championship game week as well. And Melissa, you think about it, without this concerted effort over the last 2.5 decades, TCU wouldn't be where they are today. I mean, it has been an investment of both time, talent, emotion, and dollars that's gotten TCU to this stage.
It's incredible to think about the journey the Horned Frogs have taken over the last quarter of a century, really. When you look back to the 1998 Sun Bowl team that kind of got everything started, and I know a lot of those guys are going to be here Monday night on the field or in the stands cheering them on. But it really has taken scaffolding from the top down. You look at what they're doing in athletics, what they're doing in administration, what Victor Bashini has done, and deciding to make TCU a destination athletic school. And then you see what the community did, lining the streets of Fort Worth as the buses took off. It really is an incredible thing to not just see the TCU football have this national stage, but TCU is a university. And you think back to the last time the Horned Frogs played in Southern California in the Rose Bowl and what that did for this program and this university as a whole, having all eyes on the Horned Frogs Monday night, exponentially a bigger deal for TCU. And it's only going to open more doors, not just for football, but for admissions, for the arts, for beach volleyball, for rifle, for all of these programs. The trickle-down effect is really hard to comprehend at this point.
That commitment, by the way, comes with responsibility, David Bowden. And the responsibility of this administration, this athletic director, Jeremiah Donati, to continue to perform at a high level. I think back in 1998 when we were still in the WAC. Remember that? You remember those days, Marshall? We were still in the WAC. You go from the WAC to Conference USA to the Big East for a little bit, or the Mountain. I get them out of order. The Mountain West, and then obviously the eyes on the prize though were the Big 12. That was kind of the North Star for this program the whole time. With that commitment to getting there comes tough decisions. And Jeremiah Donati made a tough decision Halloween of last year when he decided that he was going to make a change at the head coach spot here at TCU. Looking back on that, it obviously looks like a genius move. At the time, there were folks that are questioning him. What did he base that decision on, David?
Well, I think, honestly, sometimes you just need to listen to a different record. It's no disrespect or slight on what Coach Patterson was able to accomplish during his time, right? He set the stage, built the foundation for all of this. But at some point, I think all of these jobs, especially nowadays, have a shelf life. Gone are the days where you see a guy sitting in a program, for 40 years, the Bobby Bowdens of the world. It just doesn't happen anymore. And again, that's not a knock on the accomplishments. It's passing the torch to the next coach and to say, okay, take it and run with it and take that thing to the next level. Just the people around you want to hear a different voice at times. It's not necessarily even just the players, just the community as a whole, the administration. And so I think, it took guts to make that move to part ways with a coach who passes by a statue every single day heading into the office. But to his credit, to Jeremiah's credit, he was able to do that, and obviously you see the results now.
Marshall, you're a Gary Patterson guy. We all respect what Coach Gary Patterson did. Looking back on that decision, looking at what has happened here, it's hard to question it now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to question, and then obviously we're a year in, but these are unprecedented results. These are results that no one could have seen. There's obviously, TCU was picked 7th to finish 7th in the conference. They started the season unranked. There just were not a lot of expectations, but people in the program knew there was potential there. There are recruits there. There are infrastructure in place, both from a staffing and the actual players on board for this thing to be special. Now, it takes a guy like Sonny Dykes. It takes his strength coach, who he lauds every single day, Kaz Kazadi, to put things into hyper gear, as Dave said, and take that next step. And we're bearing those results right now, but to me, more so than this year, obviously right now it's about the national championship, winning it, because you're here. You can't assume that you'll get back here, but this is about building something that will last for another 20 years. And so maybe we're all talking about a potential passing of a torch back then after a couple natties, a bunch of conference titles. So that's the goal, is to have both a micro view, the success we're having right now, and then zoom out and have the macro view of, like, what does a successful program look like? What do we want TCU to continue to ascend to and laud as our goals as a football program?
This guy, by the way, was part of that foundation that has been built since 1998. There is LaDainian Tomlinson's right across the way signing autographs. We hope that LT is going to stop by and visit with us. Tank Carter's roaming around the floor here. Jesse Haney's here. J.W. Wilson, who played in 98, he was really the tone setter for this entire thing, if you ask him. I mean, these are guys that laid the foundation for this program. And you think about it, the way they still come around, Melissa, I think that they're going to be, I think, 18 of them on the sidelines, or at least involved in the game on Monday. That says a little bit about the experience that they had here, but also says about the commitment that they have to the program too, right?
I'm a little upset you didn't mention me, Brian. I was a sophomore
right,
at TCU in 1998. So I like
number
to say
16,
I played my
right?
part. Yeah, number 16. Sat next to LT in a couple classes. So, no, I think it's also a great testament to Sonny Dykes. A lot of time when there's a regime change and there's such a loyalty and earned loyalty to the previous coach, it's hard to get those guys to come back in. There's some bitterness, there's some anger, there's a lot of emotion around it. But Sonny Dykes so quickly stepped foot on campus and said, our program. This is TCU. This isn't my TCU. And I think him spending a year under Gary Patterson's staff helped him kind of understand the 40-not-4 mentality that has permeated this university over the last 25 years. And so, yeah, I mean, it says a lot about the TCU, the community, the Frog fam that we talk all about. that these guys not only want to invest in getting TCU to this era, but celebrate the Horned Frogs once they're there. And it's amazing to see them rally around this program all season long, to be involved at the games and to be a part of the national championship, cheering on the next generation and helping celebrate what they helped build.
You know, you think about it, one of the first moments that Sonny Dykes had when he arrived via the helicopter from Dallas and then met with his players, he brought out Kaz Kazadi, the strength coach, who Marshall was the first to reference here. And it was in those first 10 minutes, I think, that this season's mantra began, really. That it just took that conversation like you talked about, where he said, you've got to take ownership of this team. This is your team. When Kaz Kazadi looks him in the eye for the first 3 minutes and doesn't say a word and says, that's the last time you'll ever question what I'm doing. I mean, those were the kind of moments, I think, that really set the tone, David.
Yeah, it did. You talk to the players almost to a man, and they talk about that moment. And Kaz Kazadi, this imposing figure, sat at the front of the room and just stared at him. And they stared back, and they had no idea what was going on. It got a little uncomfortable. And you're right, Brian. He looked him in the eye and said, that's the last time you'll ever, question what I'm thinking. Because from that moment forward, every single thing was done with detail and with the purpose to make those players better and to put them in the best position to succeed. And the players bought into that, clearly. He did a great job today. We went out to practice, today and watched those guys. And with all the hoopla and the fanfare and everything going on, he put those guys into place and reminded them quickly, him and his human performance staff, of why they're here, and that's to get back to work. And so I think, Marshall mentioned compartmentalizing early on, and I think they're doing a fantastic job as a staff and a team to take in this time, enjoy it, enjoy the experience, because you never know if you're going to get another one. And so they're doing a nice job, but when it's time to work, they punch the clock and go to work.
You know what's interesting is one of the first guys that Marshall comes by to see when he's back on campus is Kaz. You go by to see. Now, you didn't play for Kaz.
Right.
You didn't work out with Kaz. But yet you as a former player, you make a point of going to see Kaz Kazadi. Why is that?
The strength coach is the guy that you get the most intimate with. You see him more than your position coach. You're with them in the summers when coaches aren't even allowed to talk to players. And they're literally taking guys who are true freshmen, 17, 18 years old out of high school, and they're building them into men. They're forming them both in the discipline and how they go about their business, and then literally forming their physical statures, making them into the players that they want to be and that they're working to be. And so that relationship is vital. That has to be there. I don't think there's any program worth its salt that doesn't have a strength, we call it human performance now, a program like that is intentional about what they do, but also purpose-driven. The players respond to that because they know that you care about them. Listen, all those extra reps that, everyone's in the spring doing their spring vacation. That's people in the civilians. We're out on the beach. We're here doing this. Players are working and they're lifting, and every rep compounds from every player to culminating to a point right now. And so a coach that can get every extra rep out of a player is a coach that's worth its weight in gold.
Which is why they're willing to invest $75 million in a new performance facility.
That seems to be right, yes.
Yeah, that seems to work. All right, we got a lot we got to do on Frogs today. Live here for the college football playoff experience. That's what we're at, the fan experience here at the LA Convention Center. We're going to start to break down this matchup, TCU and Georgia. We'll get into detail about what the Frogs can, what they will see potentially on Monday against the Georgia Bulldogs. We'll also get these experts to give us a breakdown of what they see as far as the keys for the Horned Frogs to come up with a victory. We'll do all that when we continue here live from the LA Convention Center. It is Frogs Today, presented by our friends at Higginbotham Insurance. We're back after this timeout.
At Higginbotham, we put people first. So we simply start by listening to you. Whether you're searching for customized insurance, HR, or financial solutions to protect your home, car, health, business, or employees, our specialists are here to serve you, the people you care about, and your success. Higginbotham. Insurance, HR, and financial services. Inspired by you.
Simply the best barbecue in Fort Worth. Dine in, catering, or drive-through. 2900 Montgomery, just off I-30. Remember, the best barbecue in Fort Worth is at Railhead Smokehouse.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Texas-based Happy Water offers the best-tasting, sugar-free kids drink ever made. Happy Water comes in 4 delicious flavors that you can find at local retailers and on Amazon. Each pouch contains 0 grams of sugar, 0 calories, and 0% juice. Head to happydrinks.com for more information and to purchase Happy Water. That's HAPIDrinks.com. Live happy, be happy, drink happy.
Welcome back into Frogs Today here, our special edition live from Los Angeles. It is Playoff Fan Central. That's where we're located, the college football experience, if you will, for the college football playoffs taking place here at the Los Angeles Convention Center as we get ready for that national championship game happening on Monday evening here at SoFi Stadium, which, by the way, we haven't even mentioned. Now, Marshall, did you get a chance to play in SoFi?
I did not,
you never
no,
did, right?
no.
You guys had a chance to go over there yesterday, and Sonny Dykes told us today it's the nicest stadium he's ever been in, and that includes Jerry World. He said, "What you guys notice?"
Well, we noticed it looked like a spaceship ready to take off. Yeah. And when you look in, one of the most impressive things is the video board. You know, everyone talks about, mentioned Jerry World, and it goes across. This one is actually in a full circle. They can play different games going on underneath. I mean, it is incredible. It looks like it's something that you'd see in, one of those Futurama kind of movies. So.
Jamie Pluckett is alongside one of our great writers from FrogsToday.com. All right, Jamie, you were out there. One of the things that we learned today was this turf field at SoFi is identical to the indoor at TCU. Same company, same installer, same model number, if you will. That's got to be an advantage, doesn't it?
Look, in a season where everything seems to have broken in favor of TCU, this is just the latest thing to have broken in favor of TCU. They were out there on the practice facilities out by where the LA Galaxy played. That's the same kind of turf as well. So they got to practice on it today. They're going to practice on it in SoFi tomorrow. And, they've gotten so many repetitions in on that indoor facility in Fort Worth this year. They're going to be used to it when they hit that turf.
It is technically an outdoor facility. Wind can play a role. It doesn't play a drastic role because of the canvas cover, but it will have the feel of an outdoor stadium, correct?
It will have the feel of an outdoor stadium. If you look at SoFi Stadium from the outside, you can tell that the roof is somewhat suspended over the rest of the building. There is that kind of wind tunnel effect that can happen. And if you look at the weather report on Monday, there's 70% chance of rain. So there is the possibility that some wind could get in there and maybe impact how this game ends up.
But in the end, it's all about putting your hand in the dirt, although there won't be any dirt there, right, Marshall? I mean, this is just about happening between the lines. All the other stuff, when it kicks off, won't matter, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the players are just going to want to play. Coaches, like we talked about it over and over again, Sonny, have talked about the bigger the game, the more simplify the game plan, and you just want guys to be able to play fast. Like, you don't want to have any regrets regardless of what happens about, did this guy trigger when I saw this? Was this guy thinking a little too much? Like, give him a couple options and say, press go. And all the prep has led up to that. But being in this big a moment, the player you got to do the little magic trick on your mind. I'm like, this is just another game. Because it is, but the moment won't feel that way. So you got to just play over and over your reps in your mind, the things you studied in the film, and trust that and just play fast.
I agree with you. One of the things that we saw in that Fiesta Bowl, talk about playing fast, was a guy like D. Winters, David Bowden, who was just reacting to the football. Played his best game of his career, had the pick six for the touchdown, 7 tackles, 3 behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, that was a guy who looked like he knew the game plan, he knew his opponent, and he knew his job.
Yeah, he did. And I think he's got an advantage when he plays on the line of scrimmage versus these tight end sets that he's been asked to do really for the last 3 games for the Frogs. He's not considered undersized as a linebacker at 6'1", just under 230, but certainly when he moves up to the line of scrimmage, he is a little bit undersized. So his advantage there is speed. And when he plays on the backside of plays, he is run that heel line, as they say, of the offensive line. He's make a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. And then also, we talked to Joe Gillespie today about it, and he said, look, we just give him the freedom to go. So some of that stuff with that jet sweeps, and he's making plays for a 6-yard loss, he had like the key to that is having the green light and the confidence to know, hey, if it's open, if that gap's open, take it, right? But if you're gonna take it, you better make the play, and he has.
Let's start with that matchup first, so fellas. Let's start with the TCU defense against the Georgia offense. It features Stetson Bennett, who was in New York along with Max Duggan. One of the things that Sonny Dykes has talked about all week that he really likes about Stetson is the fact that he's a student of the game. He is a leader, much like Max Duggan. Their games are quite similar, are they not, Jamie? Maybe not quite as good a runner as Max, so.
But their games are really similar. Stetson Bennett doesn't get the credit for being a good runner like Max Duggan does. But one of the things that I've noticed about Stetson throughout this season that I think is really going to challenge this TCU defense is the fact that he doesn't really care if his receivers are open or not. He trusts them to go up and get the ball, and he's got a couple 6'3", 6'4" guys on the outside that he really is comfortable throwing the football to. So if you want a matchup to look for TCU's defense versus Georgia's offense, I'm really intrigued to see how Travius Hodges-Tomlinson and Josh Newton, who are great cover cornerbacks, respond when the ball's thrown their way, even though they've locked someone down.
David Bowden had the over-under at 24 minutes after our show started as to when I would mention Stacy Searles, the offensive line coach of Georgia, who's a friend of mine who I think is a really good offensive line coach. This is an offensive line that will compare to others that we've seen here of late. They're big, they're athletic. What have you seen, Marshall?
You mentioned athleticism. I think there's a stark difference between last week, the team that won the Joe Moore Award was the award for the best offensive line unit in the country, and the fluidity from left to right tackle of this group. These guys are great athletes, the dancing bears, if you will. They're great at space. They're physical, and they're nasty. They can move. They do a lot of pin pull. They can move guys around, and they finish. These guys are hustling downfield. They do all those extra stuff that you don't expect from a guy who's 6'5", 320, and they can get there in a hurry. So that's going to be a big test for this TCU front seven about how you're going to get off blocks, both in run and pass, because Georgia's going to throw a lot at them. They're going to try to get their guys matched up. And sometimes we do drop 8, we drop 7, so trying to get pressure when there's not extra blitzers.
You called them dancing bears. Johnny Hodges pointed out this week they all had skinny ankles and said, hey, that makes a difference when you're looking at offensive linemen.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. You can actually, when you're recruiting guys, coaches will take a look at their ankles. As silly as it may sound, for athleticism, it's a good tell on whether guys can move. And these guys look the part. And we talked about it coming into media day today, watching Georgia just walk through the door off the hoof. They absolutely look the part. You could tell why they're the defending national championship. And you combine that with really, really good coaches and really good scheme. And obviously, there's a reason why it's a back-to-back.
I want to stay with you on that point because Marshall was talking about how this front group for the Horned Frogs has to figure out a way to get off blocks. Dylan Horton in the last couple of games has been off the chart. We had a chance to talk to Jamarcus McFarland, the defensive line coach, earlier today. He said he knows the clock's ticking, that he's trying to build his resume. But he also pointed out something. He said, listen, this is a guy in a new system who's never played with a hand on the ground. He was a safety in high school, was a stand-up end here in the 4-2-5, now has to play with a hand on the ground. He said it takes a while to get used to that, and we're just now seeing him comfortable. You buy that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a completely different world to play in the back end and then to kind of move up along the football. You're talking something totally different when you can face double teams in this 3-down front that he'll play outside the tackle. He takes on tackles and tight ends, so it's a big deal. But what I will say, and he's mentioned this, is it's given him a sense of the overall big picture and how he fits into the big picture. And I think that's when players really can take the next step in their game when they understand not only what is my job, that's really important, but what is my job in terms of the big picture of the entire scheme of the defense. And Dylan Horton understands that now, and I think those results are paying off.
If there is a weakness on this offensive line at Georgia, it's at center and left guard. The majority of the pressure on Stetson Bennett has come from that point. Dom Williams is a freshman nose tackle. What do you think, Jamie?
Well, I think that for a freshman nose tackle, Dom Williams has had one heck of a season, and he's going to have the chance to cap off that season with a great performance on Monday night. But, I had a chance to talk to Jamarcus McFarland today as well, and he brought up the fact that getting Dom in for the spring in 2022 was critical to where he is now in his development because he had those extra 15, 17 practices to really get the college game under his belt, to understand this 3-3-5 scheme a little bit better, and to get stronger. I don't think we've talked enough about this year, the impact of Kaz Kazadi on this team and on this roster, specifically when you talk about how guys have improved weight and in strength.
And flexibility,
Absolutely.
which is really important, right? And I mean, that was something that, you know, this, Marshall, 20 years ago, no one talked about it. But now it's all about flexibility.
Well, that's the whole part of the best availability, or the best ability is availability, and that is being flexible and sustaining. Listen, you're getting beat on every week. That's just part of the game. They say the injury rate in football is 100%. You will always eventually get hurt, but it's about, can you not get hurt in the more awkward positions, and that comes from flexibility and strength within those really elongated positions, and that's an intentional thing. You don't just wake up out of the bed, do a couple hamstring stretches. That's an intentional thing that they do every day.
Well, that stinks. That's all I do, man. I'm sorry, man. All right, so let's talk about the extension of this offensive line at tight end, and it's really three tight ends, David, that all have a really a different role. You know, they've got one that they can split out, and he's a really good receiver. They got another large man. If he goes, it could be an extension of the offensive line. These guys use their tight end maybe as well as anybody in the country.
They do, and you know, we talked to Todd Monken, the offense coordinator for Georgia, and what they're trying to do, he's done a really nice job of blending some of the pro concepts he's learned in his time in the NFL with the current sort of modern college RPO system. He blends those really well. But what they do that's most dangerous, and we also, you know, got a chance to talk to the defensive staff for TCU, and they're aware of it, of course, is the fact that they keep those tight ends, so 13 personnel, 3 tight ends on the field at a lot of times, and then get into all kinds of formations. So, you know, they get into empty sets with 3 tight ends, and all of a sudden the next snap, they're in a traditional 13 personnel set. That really challenges. Now you can't call defenses based on the personnel running on the field. So what they're asking those guys to do on the field now, instead of the coaches making the call, they're asking the players, hey, look, you have the best vantage point. You make those adjustments based on the formation, because you're not going to have much time to get that call in because the personnel stays the same. That's really what every offense is trying to do. It's just really difficult to get those kind of players that can do a multitude of things.
Yeah, they can at Georgia, though. It's a roster loaded with 5-star talent, has been since Kirby Smart got there. And the way that he has built this program over the last 7 years is pretty impressive. One thing before we step away here, I want to talk about the running backs for Georgia. It's not your normal turn and run the toss sweep to Herschel Walker anymore. It's a diverse running attack, really by committee. They'll play 3 different guys, Marshall.
Yeah, absolutely. They have a rotation of guys, and they have a rotation of schemes. They're trying to get numbers. They're trying to get leverage at all points. Dave talked about they could keep in 12 and 13 personnel and go from spread to a bunch formation. Yeah, you just covered Brock Bowers downfield who runs a 4-5. You got to come in line, and they're going to run a toss sweep or someone's cracking down.
Right.
They can do that from play to play to play. These running backs benefit from that, and that's why they're getting chunk yardage with this athletic offensive line in space, and they're getting spelled, so they're fresh legs coming off the sideline. It's just a very impressive attack.
All right, the wide receiving core, real quick for Georgia. Let's talk about them, Jamie. I mean, you mentioned them. You touched on them a little bit. They've got guys that can go high point the football. They got guys that can run by you. Will TCU have seen a group as good as this in the Big 12?
They'd be hard-pressed to find one. But, you know, the reality of Georgia's offense is that they're so strong at running back and tight end that sometimes you can almost forget about wide receiver. And so that's something critical for TCU to recognize on Monday night, is that when you're paying all of this attention, when you're trying to load the box, similar to what they had to do against Michigan and Michigan's run game, is you might end up losing someone behind you. And TCU cannot allow that to happen on Monday night. These receivers are fast, they're big. Like I said earlier, Stetson Bennett absolutely trusts them when coverage is tight. So, you know, it's all about whether Travius Hodges-Tomlinson and Josh Newton are up to the task of sticking with these guys, getting their hands in their face, and being strong and good in coverage, because otherwise these wide receivers are going to have a big night.
Speaking of Tomlinson, his uncle LT's checking you out, Marshall. He was just waving earlier. He's out behind us. We're live here at Playoff Fan Central. That's where it is today at the Los Angeles Convention Center. Getting you ready for kickoff on Sunday, or Monday, I should say. Tomorrow, Sunday, they got one more workout. Then Monday, of course, the Horned Frogs and the Georgia Bulldogs ready to square off at SoFi Stadium. Jamie Plunkett, David Bodner alongside, along with Marshall Newhouse, Melissa Treibwasser as well. We got more continuing here on Frogs Today after this timeout. A word from our friends at Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
Life is full of ifs. If you see the potential in every day, if you push for that promotion, or if you say, I do. If you can cash flow like a pro, safeguard against surprises, and supercharge your savings, the if in life becomes less iffy. Regions Life Banking makes it possible. If you're interested.
Let's talk about the if in life. Regions Bank embrace the if in life.
Exclusive interviews and content on TCU recruits. Subscribe now at frogstoday.com. Any sport, anytime. It's your source for all things TCU. Only on frogstoday.com.
Dave's Hot Chicken is a cult favorite and now has 2 locations in Fort Worth, Bryant Irvin Road on I-20 and Berry Street at TCU, both owned and operated by Horned Frogs. Mention the Frogs Today show and get 10% off anytime and order online at daveshotchicken.com.
Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Richard's Rainwater. Richard's Rainwater is 100% rain, refreshing, renewable, and the only ingredient we use in our water. Why rain? Because everyone deserves access to clean water, and rain is a 100% renewable resource available everywhere. Drink the rain. Save the planet. Shop now at richardsrainwater.com.
At Higginbotham, we put people first. So we simply start by listening to you. Whether you're searching for customized insurance, HR, or financial solutions to protect your home, car, health, business, or employees, our specialists are here to serve you, the people you care about, and your success. Higginbotham. Insurance, HR, and financial services. Inspired by you.
Welcome back into Frogs Today, live here at Playoff Fan Central at Los Angeles Convention Center as we count you down for this one, the Horned Frogs and the Georgia Bulldogs. Broadcast presented by our friends at Higginbotham Insurance. Also, a big thank you to Regions Bank as well for helping make all of our events this week possible. We want you to make sure you're logging on to frogstoday.com, subscribing on the YouTube channel as well. We need you to be a part of what we're doing here as we give you wall-to-wall coverage of this, the College Football National Championship game. We talked a lot about the Georgia offense versus the TCU defense. Let's shift gears a little bit now. Let's talk about Georgia's defense. And this is one where it's hard to get explosive plays. I mean, and that's something that really is important to both of these offenses, David.
It is. And when you first look at it, if you want to define explosive plays as 20 yards or more, either run or pass, and there's multiple definitions, but looking at it that way, really TCU has 89 explosive plays of 20 yards or more over the season, as opposed to Georgia who has 88, so only one more. So that's at first glance. However, when you dive deeper into it, TCU leads the nation in plays over 50 yards. I think they have 21 plays over 50 yards or more, and 12 of those are 60 yards or more. So this is a team that's creating big-time opportunities, and they do that a lot of times by taking care of Max and taking their shots with 6 or 7-man protections and 3-man routes and taking their shots down the field that way. A lot of times on early downs, on those run downs, they'll go ahead and take one and go with play action and try to get over the top of them, or just throw it underneath and let those big-time receivers make plays.
But that goes against the air raid. I mean, people assume that TCU's got, 5 or 6 guys in the pattern and, they're just cutting it loose. Everybody's running a vertical. Not the case on the explosive plays.
No, it's not. And Garrett Riley's time at Appalachian State when he was the offense coordinator there, or excuse me, he was coaching running backs there. They ran that wide zone all the time, and they've been known for years. He's taken that influence and really married it with some air raid passing concepts. But also the play action pass has really come from that. And then frankly, he does a lot of stuff that his brother Lincoln does in the pass game, right? There's a lot of deep crossing routes and those sort of things. That's been big and a staple. It was a staple at Oklahoma for years under Lincoln Riley during his time as the offensive coordinator, and then of course as the head coach.
All right, this offensive line is going to get challenged again. That's an understatement of the year. This defensive front four that you're going to see out of Georgia will be the best that TCU has played. You've seen them. Their ends are NFL ends. These are NFL-style pass rushers. Can this offensive line, Marshall, can it stand up?
Well, I believe they can, but you said that their defensive ends are NFL caliber. But the thing that stirs the whole defense is Jalen Carter. He's such a force inside. He doesn't stay blocked. He's explosive. He can pass rush. He can two-gap. He can do everything you want inside, and he allows them to keep 6 guys in the box. They're going to try to keep 6 guys in the box. If you watch the Tennessee game, the LSU game, and the SEC championship, they tried as often as they could to keep 2 high safeties over the top and 6 guys in the box and just play man to man. And they're like, run it if you need to, run it if you want to. If you're only getting 1 or 2 yards of carry, then you're going to be in 3rd and long, and then we're going to set our dogs on you. So Jalen Carter allows that to happen because there's always 4 eyes at the minimum on him. 2 linemen, a guard and a center, a guard and a tackle who are accounting for him every single snap. And so I don't think these pass rushers are the best TCU's seen. They're definitely NFL talent, but they're not the most elite guys. But Jalen Carter allows pressure up the middle. He pushes the pocket back, and then he just makes sure you pay attention to him. You can't go into a series thinking that he's just going to take a play off or he's just going to kind of wash himself out of the play, because he's everywhere, and he's going to be a top 5 pick for that reason.
So how do you attack that? How do you beat that?
Well, they're gonna have to use their running game and stick with it, even when it doesn't look good. So hopefully, we get good news with Kendra on game time. But even if not, Amari DiMercado is going to be a big player in this game, and you're going to have to ask the offensive line. You need to sustain blocks. It's not going to be a perfect knockback every single time, but we need the double teams to continue to push back to the second level, get on the second level defenders, and if we're falling forward for 3 or 4, that over time becomes 5 and 6 as the game goes on. That sets up your play action game. As Dave mentioned, we'll bring up more guys in, more bodies, create a little more window dressing, and take deep shots to Quentin. But if you don't get them out of the 6-man box, then they're going to keep 2 guys over, and guess what? Who they're looking at? They're looking at Quentin Johnston as well. So they're going to take away opportunities for the explosive plays that TCU is known for. So you've got to get them out of this 6-man box. I remember playing with Green Bay. We ran into a nemesis 2 years in a row. We couldn't beat the Jim Harbaugh, ironically, led San Francisco 49ers because they had studs inside, studs on the edge, and 2 linebackers who could cover everyone on the field. And that gives you such versatility as a defensive play caller. You get to be vanilla. And tempo doesn't hurt you because you're not substituting a lot. So you've got to run them out of that, and we can use Max's legs as well in that run, but you've got to get them out of that so that you can take shots after.
Jamie, I hate to upstage you, but you're getting upstaged right now. The national championship trophy is here. Come on over.
Okay.
See if we can. We're gonna take a look at this.
Shiny.
Yes, look at
Shiny.
this.
Do we need to
Nice
stand
and
in
shiny.
honor?
It's warm. Is
Oh,
it supposed to be warm?
And
Is
it's
there
2
a fire
pieces,
in there?
right? It is. It's 2 pieces.
Oh, man.
What do you think of that?
That's incredible.
That's what you're playing for, fellas, right
That's
here.
it. That's it right there.
This. I mean, and you think about the way this would look in the football facility at TCU, Jamie. You know this thing would look sharp, wouldn't it?
Well, for so many years, Gary Patterson, every time the big recruit got on campus, he'd pull that Rose Bowl trophy off the shelf and put it right there on his coffee table. So when a kid walked in, that was the first thing that he saw. I think that Sonny Dykes might be doing the same thing if the Frogs can pull it off on Monday night with this beautiful trophy right here.
If they can pull it off offensively, they're going to have the challenges. We know that. But Quentin Johnston's got to have a big game. The run game, though, that Marshall talked about. Kendre Miller, Amari DiMercado, you and Jeff Wilson been covering this story for the last couple of days. Give us all the latest on Kendre.
Well, we know Kendre hurt his MCL in the second quarter of that game against Michigan. He spent the last week trying to get right enough to at least try to practice. That wasn't the case today. We went out to practice today, watched them do they call it a run-through, not a walk-through. Kendre was in street clothes for that. He did not participate. He told Jeff Wilson earlier today that he felt like his knee was about 50%. He's listed as questionable right now. I don't expect that to change before Monday. But, Brian, as you said earlier this week, his helmet is in Los Angeles. Yeah. And if Kendre Miller's helmet is in Los Angeles, the Frogs are going to be hard-pressed to keep him off the field. Now, if he's not full health or if he's not able to go at all, we saw what Amari DiMercado is capable of in that Michigan game, running for 150 yards. He grew up just 5 minutes from here. His whole family is going to be here. He's going to have more folks at this game than he's had probably at any game in his TCU career. And you know that he's just chomping at the bit to get out there, show off in front of his hometown, in front of his family, and help the Frogs bring home a title.
I want to talk about Amari with David in a second, but first off, I do need to touch on this. Kendre Miller has a bright future in the NFL as a running back. You played in that league. You know what it takes. You know what that next level is all about. Your advice to Kendre Miller, if that knee's 50-50, what are you telling?
Well, listen, Kendre has nothing to prove to any of us. He showed us all year the toughness he's made of, his devotion to this team, his selflessness. If there's even a shadow of a doubt that this could, impact his career moving forward, you use abundance of caution. There's so much more for him after this. And so as hard as it will be for the national championship right there in front of you, you use caution. But I will also say, as someone who's torn my MCL multiple times, you can play on it.
Yeah.
It can be played. You can play effectively on it. That differs from man to man. I like to think as a 17, 18-year-old, 20-year-old guy, you got a little bit more recovery in you. But again, he shouldn't feel pressure from any fan, any coach, any player to do something that his body is not ready to do. But again, he has nothing to prove to us.
Take this the right way. Is playing on a bad MCL for an offensive lineman different than playing on a bad MCL for a running back?
It's very different.
Okay.
So there's different things asked and required, and I won't act like they're the same or similar. But, depending on the body, depending on the pain threshold, all that stuff comes into play.
I remember when LT was in our studio at Frogs Today, back in the Flying T Club studios, and we talked about some of the painful moments that he went through, and he talked about being hurt in the playoffs. You missed the Super Bowl because you're on the IR with the Packers, right?
Yeah.
You know how painful it is.
Yeah.
I mean, he talked about that. You got to believe that's what's going through Kentre Miller's mind as well. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, right?
Yeah, he said, his first answer to everybody is, oh, I'm going, right? Just because he's a natural competitor. And as Marshall mentioned, we've seen it all year from him. What it's telling about Kendre is what he can do in the pass protection game, and he's willing to step up, meet guys at the line of scrimmage. And running backs who are selfish, you don't see him do that. Kendre is a team-first guy. He's proven that. And so that's his natural instinct. His natural instinct is to play. Of course, there's people in his corner. There's people at TCU. They're going to make sure that he does the right thing. I think in addition to Amari DiMarcaro, though, this is a game here in the run game that, Max Duggan needs to run the football, right? Yep. It's his last college football game. We all know he can do it with his legs. You don't have to preserve him anymore. And with Kendre, being questionable, it's a great time for him. And then also guys like, against Jalen Carter. If you can't block him, read him. Right? Because then you don't have to try and block. So those are some of the things I would look for them to +1 Max Duggan in the run game to sort of help out with the situation with Kendre Miller.
All right, we got one more segment we're going to get to because we're going to break down this game with some keys for the Horned Frogs. Melissa's going to rejoin us. Coach Bowden, I need to get your keys right now. Melissa's going to take your seat. You've gotten it warm for her. The Frogs win if they do this.
Well, I think one of those things is Max Duggan running, as I just mentioned. I think also defensively, if they can identify these formations and kind of their play menu out of those formations. They do play, Georgia will play with some tempo if they get things rolling. But I think on the other side, you've got to get these defensive linemen, these big defensive linemen. Yes, they're athletic, but just get them running side to side. So get the ball out fast, get it on the perimeter, and start to tire these guys down in terms of screen, tempo, those sort of things. So you can sort of negate, this really dangerous defensive line.
Is it close in the end?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely close. I think it's going to be a real close one for sure.
All right, good deal. Coach David Bowden joining us here. Big thank you to my man Ray with the trophy. Ray's the best. But best PR guy in the business. Just ask him. He'll tell you. But he's got the championship trophy here with us today. Coming up next, we're going to break down this game with keys for the Horned Frogs to win this one. Frogs Today live here at the Fan Playoff Experience. This is Playoff Fan Central. Our broadcast presented by our friends at Higginbotham Insurance, and a big thank you to Regions Bank as well. More to come after this timeout.
At Higginbotham, we put people first. So we simply start by listening to you. Whether you're searching for customized insurance, HR, or financial solutions to protect your home, car, health, business, or employees, our specialists are here to serve you, the people you care about, and your success. Higginbotham. Insurance, HR, and financial services. Inspired by you.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Texas-based Happy Water offers the best-tasting, sugar-free kids drink ever made. Happy Water comes in 4 delicious flavors that you can find at local retailers and on Amazon. Each pouch contains 0 grams of sugar, 0 calories, and 0% juice. Head to happydrinks.com for more information and to purchase Happy Water. That's HAPIdrinks.com. Live happy, be happy, drink happy.
For exclusive interviews and content on TCU recruits, subscribe now at frogstoday.com. Any sport, anytime. It's your source for all things TCU. Only on frogstoday.com.
Life is full of ifs. If you see the potential in every day, if you push for that promotion, or if you say, I do. If you can cash flow like a pro, safeguard against surprises, and supercharge your savings, the if in life becomes less iffy. Regions Life Banking makes it possible. If you're interested.
Let's talk about the if in life. Regions Bank embrace the if in life.
Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Richard's Rainwater. Richard's Rainwater is 100% rain, refreshing, renewable, and the only ingredient we use in our water. Why rain? Because everyone deserves access to clean water, and rain is a 100% renewable resource available everywhere. Drink the rain. Save the planet. Shop now at richardsrainwater.com.
Welcome back into Frogs Today, live here at the College Football Fan Experience. Yeah, it is Playoff Fan Central here at the Los Angeles Convention Centers. We get ready for the national championship game. Monday night, SoFi Arena. Horned Frogs and the Georgia Bulldogs. The number 1 Georgia Bulldogs. The number 3 TCU Horned Frogs. But it was interesting to hear today, Melissa, the coaches from Georgia talk about the fact they went out of their way to make sure folks knew that they thought TCU was deserving of being in that national championship game. Kirby Smart's handled it a little bit differently than Jim Harbaugh has. Is that fair to say?
They were not going to make the same mistake that Michigan did and give TCU any more bulletin board material than the rest of the national media has, right? I think that Kirby Smart is someone who's been here. That might be the most business-like program that we've seen in America, and that's saying something considering he learned under the foot of Nick Saban. And so this team is not going to get rattled. They're not going to be afraid of the moment. They've been here before, but they also aren't going to overlook their opponent. They're going to approach this like a professional operation because that's how they've been running their system really since that Liberty Bowl, like Jamie wrote about a couple of days ago. And so, yeah, you're not going to get players asking what conference TCU plays in. You're not going to get quarterbacks talking about smashing. You're going to get an approach of a team who expects to be here and knows what they need to do to win and isn't going to give the opponent on the other side anything extra that's going to give them an advantage heading into kickoff. You know, what's interesting is you talked about the business-like approach, and Jeremiah Donati, the athletic director, talked about this today. He said, the Fiesta Bowl felt like a bowl experience. Had your typical lead up to it. Yep. You're there for a week. You had all the pageantry and the events going on. This feels like an NFL playoff game. Yes. It has a definite, different business-like feel to it, doesn't it?
I was just here a couple years ago for the Super Bowl, and it's very similar to that. Yes, there's fanfare with what all of us are going through, but the players themselves. This is the last game of the season. This is everything that you've wanted to be in the position to accomplish, and you're here right now. There's just nothing else after this. You have every month until next season to sleep. You've got all that time to recover, and everyone's going to throw everything out there because you realize how special and how important this is.
We're going to get some keys for the Frog victory coming up next, but first, Jimmy Plunkett, how does TCU build on this game? Win or lose for the program, how do you build on this national championship appearance?
Well, I think it starts in recruiting. TCU consistently, since they joined the Big 12, has had the third most talented recruiting class year over year over year behind Texas and Oklahoma. That can change now that Texas and Oklahoma are leaving for the SEC. There is no reason that TCU can't take this momentum and continue to recruit at a high level. We've seen them already start to do that in the first full recruiting cycle under Sonny Dykes because TCU just signed the highest rated recruiting class in the modern recruiting era at TCU. They're number 17 in the country right now. They have a lot of really strong 2024 prospects on the hook already that they're going to try and build on for this 2024 class. That's where you start. The next place that you go is fundraising. TCU has historically been an incredibly good school when it comes to fundraising. You'll remember the good story about when Chris Del Conte was still the athletic director here. He fundraised the rebuild for the new stadium, didn't have to take out a single loan to rebuild Amon G. Carter. The same thing goes for Schollmeyer Arena, where the men's and women's basketball play. This is a really good fundraising university already, and a national championship appearance will only help with that. And then the third thing is on the academic side. We remember the spike in applications after the Rose Bowl, as Melissa mentioned earlier. They're projecting, Heath Einstein is the director of admissions at TCU. He sent me a message the other day saying they're expecting 50,000 applicants in the upcoming application cycle to TCU. Just a reminder, folks, TCU is an undergraduate school of about 12,500. They accept maybe 3,000 to 4,000 students a year. 50,000 applications coming through the door.
And I wouldn't have been worried about Melissa or Marshall, but I'm glad you got out when you did.
Oh, Lord
Jamie.
knows it. Yeah.
I am glad you got out when you did. All right, finally, let's get some keys now for the Horned Frogs. You heard what Coach David Bowden anticipates and what TCU's got to be really good at. Melissa, I'll start with you. Horned Frogs win if they do this.
I think the biggest thing is going to be don't let the moment overwhelm you. Mike Golick Jr., I spoke with him earlier from the other sideline, and he talked about walking on that field, and nothing can prepare you for all of those camera flashes. And we all see it at the Super Bowl, right? And it's that same kind of a feeling. All eyes have been on this team for the last week and really for the last month. Do you deserve to be here? Can this team compete at a high level? They just need to go out there and do their jobs, the thing that they preach all season long. When it comes to a performance on the field, I think Max Duggan, this is his opportunity to go out, the type of player that we've seen him be all season, to have that Heisman moment game once again. We saw him carry his team, kicking and screaming 95 yards down the field against Kansas State. He's going to have to play a more complete game from start to finish against Georgia. He's going to have to, complete some of those passes that were just a little bit high. He was a little juiced early on against Michigan. Can't say I blame him. But just the accuracy, the poise, settling into the situation, making his reads, taking what's given to him by that defense. There's going to be opportunities down the field, but he's going to also have to look at his second, third read. The most encouraging play I saw in that entire game against Michigan was I think he hit Jordan Hudson was his fifth read on one play.
Right.
And if you have the time, your offensive line gives you the time, and Max is able to go through those progressions, TCU's going to have every opportunity to move the ball. And as long as they can take care of the football and maybe get a bounce or two their way, they're going to this thing in the fourth quarter in a one-score game. You got to like their chances.
A couple of pick sixes would help you take
it
that
would not
again,
be bad.
right?
Would not be bad.
All right, Jamie Plunkett, what are you thinking, man?
You got to protect the football. You have to protect the football. You can't turn it over 3 times like you did against Michigan and get away with it. The Frogs did have some fortunate bounces in that Fiesta Bowl when you consider the fact that Michigan had the ball inside their 5 3 different times and only came away with 3 total points. Georgia is going to finish those drives if they get that close to the goal line. So you cannot turn the ball over in plus territory, and you have to turn it over a couple times too. Those pick sixes would absolutely be a welcome sight in the national championship on Monday night, but it's about protecting the ball, finding opportunities to take the football away from your opponent, and controlling the game in that way.
He's going to start with the offensive line, but let's see what Marshall thinks is the key.
Well, I definitely want to piggyback on the turnover margin. TCU's got to have a positive turnover margin and also a positive, I'd say a double-digit points off turnover margin. You can't just turn the ball over. You got to score off those opportunities, and you can't give them points on the other end. Max Duggan had a couple passes that were very crisp passes that bounced off receivers' hands. That stuff literally can't happen. You can't have it. And Georgia, as good as anyone in the country at scoring in the red zone. So if you turn the ball over and you let them get in the red zone, they're going to convert. And TCU is going to be kind of out a little bit. So you got to stay ahead of the turnover margin. And then I think at the end of the day, offensive line and defensive line have got to show up and just be stout. There's not going to be a whole lot of big waves of movement because this is the SEC guys. They've gone up against the best offensive lines in the country, but it doesn't mean they're Superman. That doesn't mean that they're unbeatable. But you guys have got to play together, the most inspired game of the season. Why not now? And you've got to move guys and make a guy like Jalen Carter a non-factor. As best you can, make him a non-factor. Give your playmakers opportunities to make plays. And at the end of the game, TCU, I think, will have a chance to win it. I mean, this is going to be a close game. TCU can keep it close if the turnovers are there. But you've got to get there by sustaining drives, putting a lot of plays together, converting first downs, keeping guys on the field. Like those simple things that we've always taken for granted. We know they're the building blocks to a win. They've got to do those things, and at the end of the day, just leave it all out there.
Some great stuff. Leave it all out there. Keep your eye on Darius Davis. This is one of the best punt returners in the country. Georgia's about 110th in punt coverage. Can the Frogs take advantage? Let's see if that ends up being the difference in this ball game. Hey, thank you to all who helped make this possible. Thanks to my man Ray with the championship trophy as well. For Melissa Treibwasser, for Jamie Plunkett, for Coach David Bowden, Jay Fitzgerald, our producer, and of course for this guy right here, Big Marshall Newhouse. I'm Brian Estridge. Thanks for joining us here for Frogs Today Live at the Playoff Fan Experience. Playoff Fan Central here at the College Football Experience at the LA Convention Center. Thanks to our friends at Higginbotham Insurance, along with our friends at Regions Bank for help making it possible. Continue to follow us at Frogs Today, frogstoday.com, and on the YouTube channel as well. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and remember, it's your Bowl Central right there. We've got everything national championship at frogstoday.com. For our entire crew, thanks for joining us here on Frogs Today.
Roxo Media House.